Most people pray for a savior, but the greatest gift you will ever receive is the cold realization that you are utterly alone. You look at the contacts in your phone and the faces across the dinner table, and you finally see the truth. No one is coming to fund your vision, to lift you from exhaustion, or to cushion your fall. For the 99%, this is a terminal diagnosis of despair, a collapse into the victimhood of the "why me" narrative. But for the architect, this is the mors ontologica, the necessary death of the socialized self. It is not a tragedy, it is the brutal grace of a baptism. You are here because you have felt the suffocating weight of an ambition that your peers cannot even define, let alone support. This isolation is the price of entry. Embrace this silence with the Stoic amor fati, a love of your fate, because only in the void can the sovereign finally begin to exist. Your belief in networking is a submissive confession of your own incompetence. Since birth, you have been methodically bred for dependency. Institutions mandate group projects and congregations to induce the agentic state, a psychological cage where individual will is surrendered to the authority of the herd. This is the structural architecture of domestication. When you recite the mantra, it's not what you know, but who you know. You are swallowing a sedative. You're admitting that your value is merely a derivative of someone else's permission. You have handed the keys of your fortress to strangers, motivated only by their own self-interest. You're not building a path. You are merely shortening your leash. Support is not a hand-up. It is a lien against your future sovereignty. Every favor you accept is a microtransaction of your freedom. Machiavelli understood that a prince who relies on the benevolence of others is merely a tenant in his own kingdom. When you seek support, you are actively seeking debt, a psychological shackle known as reciprocity bias. The Medici didn't maintain power through kindness, but through the strategic distribution of obligations, ensuring they remained the creditors of history. If an ally invests in you, they own a piece of your soul. If they support you emotionally, they hold the kill switch to your stability. You seek a safety net, ignoring that every net is also a spiderweb designed to paralyze the prey. Your stagnation is not a lack of resources, but a surplus of hope. You waste kinetic energy scanning the horizon for a savior, diluting your vision to make it palatable for the mediocre. The sovereign never waits for the applause of the debtors. Loyalty is the greatest myth of the defeated. A man who relies on it is already dead. Imagine the general on the field who turns to find his army has dissolved into the mist. He does not mourn their cowardice. He realizes he has been placed on Sun Tzu's death ground, the psychological terrain where, because there is no retreat and no backup, the only outcome is total lethality or absolute extinction. On this ground, you become asymmetrical. A committee is a slow-moving target, paralyzed by consensus and meetings about meetings. You are a ghost in the machine. You can pivot, strike, and rewrite your entire destiny in a single hour because you have no board of directors to placate. Your isolation is not a punishment. It is a high-grade filter. It has purged the parasites who would have bartered your gold for their comfort or betrayed you the moment you tasted power. You're alone because you have been granted immunity from the crushing gravity of other people's mediocrity. You are hemorrhaging your future every time you open your mouth to describe it. To execute with lethal precision in the void, you must enter the ghost phase, a state of strategic invisibility where the need for an audience is surgically removed from your identity. Most men fail because they are energy leakers. They conceive a vision and immediately dilute its potency by seeking the cheap, transient validation of a listener. This is the Zeigarnik Effect, weaponized against your own progress by verbalizing your goal. Your brain receives a premature cognitive closure, a dopamine hit that tricks the psyche into believing the victory is already secured. The drive to act evaporates the moment the story is told. The ghost, however, operates under a vow of absolute silence. You do not tell your partner, your mother, or your digital followers about big things coming. Every word spoken is a catastrophic leak in the high-pressure vessel of your ambition. When you refuse to release the steam through talk, the internal tension builds into a frantic, restless, and kinetic energy, a psychological boiler nearing the point of explosion. You need this anxiety. You need this restlessness. It is the only force capable of pushing you through the resistance at 3 a.m., while the supported world sleeps in the warmth of their shared delusions. Isolation grants you the ultimate luxury, the death of the social mask. You are no longer required to perform for the herd or attend the hollow rituals of happy hours and birthday celebrations for people you secretly despise. Let the mask shatter. In the silence of the void, let the monster work. The world labels obsession a pathology because they fear the singular focus of a man who doesn't need them. To us, obsession is the only prerequisite for dominance. Without a safety net, your only insurance is technical supremacy. You must become so strategically sound and so proficient that you become an undeniable force of nature, a weapon forged in the dark, perfected by the silence that the weak cannot endure. Sadness is not a symptom of failure. It is the scent of a rotting identity. To walk this path, you must first become a mourner at your own funeral. The motivational industry peddles the hollow lie of the hustle while concealing the visceral physical agony of the void. You must grieve the life you were promised, the cheering section that never arrived, the parents who cannot see your light, and the friends who chose the comfort of the herd over the climb. This is the ritualistic slaughter of the puer aeternus, the eternal child, who survives only on the milk of external approval. You will find yourself staring at the ceiling in the valley of the shadow, hallucinating the warmth of the cage you just escaped. Do not retreat. You must kill the boy so the sovereign can rise. Once you perceive the reality of the herd's mutual sedation, you are cursed with sight. There is no return to the womb. Your internal dialogue is not a conversation. It is a coup d'etat. To survive the void, you must perform a psychological bisection separating the child who craves comfort from the architect who demands results. This is the radical reclamation of your internal locus of control. The realization that the universe provides no steering wheel, only the one you forge in the dark. You must become your own bloodline, the father who never arrived, the provider who never appeared, and the cold strategist who offers no pity. Look in the mirror and issue laws, not suggestions. This is the construction of your inner citadel, a mental fortress where the ego is ruthlessly subordinated to the mission. There is a version of you that is tired, emotional, and fundamentally weak. The commander's only duty is to drag that weakling through the mud until he either evolves or expires. Machiavelli's flexible disposition is the requirement to be cruel to yourself in the present to ensure your sovereignty in the future. Without the sedation of support, you are granted the lethal gift of an immediate feedback loop. If you sleep, you starve. If you falter, the world moves on without you. There is no social cushion to soften the impact of your own stagnation, no enabler to sanitize your excuses. This brutal proximity to consequence is what forges the anti-fragile mind. The concrete hits hard, but the man who rises from it is no longer a victim, he is the architect. Your morality is a cage designed by those who fear your hunger. While the average man identifies with his trauma to excuse his stagnation, you will leverage your exclusion as a strategic furnace. This is the transmutation of resentment, taking the reactive poison of being overlooked and distilling it into a proactive Nietzschean will to power. The victim asks for a gym partner or a seed investor. The villain thanks the universe for the vacuum. Michael Jordan did not dominate through joy. He manufactured slights, inventing disrespect where none existed to summon the rage required for total execution. You must adopt this dark alchemy. Every unanswered text, every condescending smirk, and every door slammed in your face is not a setback. It is high-octane propellant. Anger is a far cleaner fuel than sadness. Where sadness is a gravitational weight that demands you kneel, anger is a kinetic fire that demands you strike. Machiavelli noted that the masses are so tethered to their immediate needs for safety and conformity that they are easily deceived by the appearance of peace. Do not be the victim of their simplicity. They did not support you because they lack the optical depth to see your horizon. They speak a dialect of ease. You speak a language of conquest. Stop trying to translate your vision for the illiterate. Build your tower so high that their only choice is to crane their necks in silent, aching recognition. Trust is an emotional luxury that the sovereign cannot afford. When you introduce a human variable into your equation for success, you are not adding strength. You are inviting entropy. Every person you rely on is a potential point of catastrophic failure, a volatile cocktail of boredom, jealousy, and inevitable inconsistency. The statistics are a massacre. Collaborations fail, partnerships dissolve, and alliances rot from within. If your trajectory relies on someone else's discipline, your strategy is a suicide note. Machiavelli's directive was absolute: avoid auxiliary forces at all costs. To win with another's army is to become their prisoner. To succeed on another's platform is to wear their collar. You will be forced to censor your truth to appease their ego and dilute your vision to fit their narrow parameters. Succeeding with zero support is the only way to prevent your soul from becoming a shared asset. Total isolation is the only guarantee of total ownership. Ease is a slow-acting poison that kills the will before it can ever manifest. You must understand the inherent frailty of the passenger the man airlifted to the summit by a helicopter of inherited connections or convenient mentorship. He stands on the peak, yes, but he possesses the atrophy of a pampered slave. When the gale force of reality hits, he is purged from the mountain because he lacks the connective tissue required to hold the ground. You, conversely, are clawing through the permafrost, bleeding into the granite, and freezing in the silence of the void. This is the forge of the sovereign. This is where you develop the Matthew effect of competence to him who does it all. More capacity is given. When there is no mentor to whisper the answer, you are forced into a state of polymathic dominance. You do not merely memorize solutions. You excavate them from the mud of your own failure. By the time you reach the summit, you aren't just standing on the mountain, you have become the mountain. You own the marketing, the finance, and the psychology, because they are woven into your cellular memory. The specialist is a replaceable cog in someone else's machine, but the generalist who laid every brick of his own castle is an irreplaceable god of his own domain. Look at your empty contact list and offer your gratitude. Thank it for forcing you to become the totality of what was required. Your suffering is not a tragedy to be mourned. It is the most efficient fuel you will ever possess. While the masses exhaust their vitality, trying to numb the sting of isolations through the sedation of digital noise, intoxicants, and hollow consumption, you will master the dark art of Freudian sublimation. This is the strategic process of taking raw, unacceptable impulses, envy, rage, and existential fear, and channeling them directly into the gears of your production. Pain is not a signal to stop. It is high-octane energy. Recall the explosive productivity that follows a betrayal or a crushing defeat. The outlier does not wait for these tragedies to strike. He taps into the ambient pain of his solitude on command. You must forge a Pavlovian circuit where the feeling of being ignored or abandoned triggers an immediate reflexive surge of work. When the world remains silent, your output must become deafening. This is how you transition from a feeling human to an executing machine. Machiavelli described this as not the hollow moralizing of the common man, but the ruthless prowess required to impose one's will upon the shifting tides of fortune. Fortune, he noted, favors the bold who take what is theirs without permission. Support makes you soft. Safety is the slow death of ambition. You need to feel the cold water in your lungs to remember how to swim. By stripping away the safety net of external validation, you awaken the predatory instincts of the primal brain, heightening your senses and sharpening your strategic vision. You will see opportunities in the shadows that the comfortable man is too blind to perceive. Welcome the danger of the void. It is not trying to destroy you. It is the only thing truly waking you up. Freedom is the ultimate trap for the mediocre. It is merely the rope by which the weak hang themselves. Without a supervisor to monitor your hours or a team to provide the illusion of momentum, you are left in the most dangerous company on earth, your own lack of resolve. Most men treat their freedom like a vacation, dissolving into the entropy of late mornings and digital distractions. To succeed with zero support, you must become a fascist dictator over your own impulses. You do not need a to-do list. You need a protocol. A to-do list is a fragile wish. A protocol is a sovereign law. Every morning is a battlefield negotiation with your own biology. The moment your eyes open, the weak part of your brain begs for the snooze button. It craves the microdose of comfort that signifies defeat. If you lose this first skirmish, you have already signaled to your subconscious that you are a subject, not a sovereign. You must then transition into deep work blocks, 4 hours of absolute surgical immersion. This is your asymmetrical advantage. In the vacuum of isolation, you produce more in a single morning than a committee-bound corporation does in a week. They are paralyzed by meetings and consensus. You are propelled by speed and lethality. If you have no support, your mind is your only remaining asset. Most of you are treating it like a landfill, filling it with the garbage of news cycles and social drama. Machiavelli did not waste his intellect on the petty gossip of the Florentine streets. He donned his formal robes to commune with the strategy of the Romans. Curate your information diet with the same cold elitism. Finally, the evening review must be a ruthless audit. You must look in the mirror and demand an account of the day's work. Did you move the needle, or did you just make noise? You have no boss to fire you, so you must be the boss who refuses to coddle a failing employee. This is the eudaimonia of constraint. Total freedom is achieved only through the absolute tyranny of self-imposed structure. You are wandering into rooms of strangers, begging for a gaze and calling it professional development. Networking is the terminal ritual of the powerless, a marketplace where the bankrupt trade business cards like currencies with no gold backing. When you start from zero, you possess zero leverage. In the eyes of the elite, you are not a peer, you are a mendicant. Powerful people possess a predatory sense for desperation. They despise the beggar because he offers only a deficit of value. Every hour you spend at a networking mixer nursing cheap wine and reciting a rehearsed elevator pitch is an hour stolen from the singular craft that could have made you undeniable. This is the cold arithmetic of social exchange theory. Status is the only currency the elite recognize, and interest is paid only on existing capital. Do not seek the handshake, seek the leverage. Machiavelli understood that a prince survives by making himself necessary to the survival of others. Stay home. Build a product, a skill, or a platform so rare and so potent that you become a magnet for the iron. When you are the honeypot, the bees find you. Your network is not who you know. It is the track record of excellence that makes it impossible to ignore you. The moment your victory becomes undeniable, the leeches will attempt to rewrite history. They will emerge from the shadows with a nauseating warmth, armed with the most dangerous word in the social lexicon, we. This is the cold reality of social signaling. The herd only validates what is already inevitable. They are not celebrating your vision. They are worshipping the status they previously ignored. Your final test is to resist the seduction of their retroactive support. The boy inside you will crave the validation of those who once laughed, but the sovereign knows that their love is merely a lagging indicator of your utility. Treat them with a polished Machiavellian indifference. You are now a wall of glass, transparent but impenetrable. You do not owe them a seat at a table they refuse to help build. Sovereignty is the peace of knowing your circle is not a crowd, but a fortress. The only legitimate allies are those who stood in the void. Everyone else is just a tourist of your success. You realize that their love is a market-driven commodity. You keep your gates closed because you have learned that the only hand you can rely on is at the end of your own arm. This is not loneliness. It is the absolute ownership of your narrative. Most people fear the void because they lack the internal substance to fill it. You have survived it because you have finally become the substance itself. This is the ultimate peace of the sovereign individual. The unshakable cold realization that you are the only asset in your portfolio that will ever truly matter. If the world burned tomorrow and your resources were liquidated, you could rebuild the empire from the frozen ashes, because the blueprints are etched into your nervous system, not stored in a network of fickle allies or the shifting goodwill of a crowd. You have transitioned from a subject of the system to the architect of your own reality. And here lies the final Machiavellian paradox. Once you no longer require support, you gain the absolute power to distribute it. You become the patron, the hidden godfather to the young, hungry mutations who are currently drowning in the same silence you once called home. You do not save them out of empathy, which is a herd emotion, but out of a strategic legacy, fixing the glitch in the system that once attempted to delete you. Machiavelli noted that it is a double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. For you, it is a double pleasure to support the unsupported, bypassing the very institutions that failed you. You grant support only to those who possess the raw spark of the outlier, turning your previous pain into a gatekeeping mechanism for the new elite. Never forget the cold. Never let the warmth of the world's current applause soften the granite of your soul. Keep a shard of that original darkness in your heart as a permanent anchor. They clap for you now because you are a winner, but you must remember that you were the only one clapping for yourself when the room was empty and the air was freezing. Your biology will scream that this is too hard, that you need the flock to survive. That is the prey instinct trying to herd you back into the slaughterhouse of safety. The sheep is safe only until the wolf arrives. The wolf is safe because he is the danger. You are the mutation that survived the dark so you could eventually own the light. Most people will turn this off and return to their micro-doses of sympathy. But you are still here, analyzing the architecture of power. Understand that the algorithm is designed to bury the truths that make men truly dangerous. The deepest layers of dark psychology are too lethal for the public square. They exist only for those willing to step beyond the veil and enter the architect level. Most won't. That is why they will always be the audience, and you will be the author.